It's no secret that the Mets have been playing really good baseball, but there is one piece of sour news that does really sting. The Mets' rising star catcher, Francisco Alvarez, has suffered a torn ligament in his left thumb, which will require surgery. The 22-year-old first felt discomfort after jamming his thumb into the bag while stealing second base during Wednesday afternoon's game. But fast forward 2 days later, Alvarez re-aggravated it, landing awkwardly on the base paths during Friday night's game in LA. Carlos Mendoza specified that the timetable currently is unknown for Alvarez, but the Mets are fully confident he will return this season. The following day, Alvarez stated that he likely will be out 6 to 8 weeks, which would put him on a return timeline for early to mid-June at the earliest. Alvarez has been placed on the 15-day injured list as the Mets have called up longtime tenured catcher Tomas Nido as the corresponding move.
This was very upsetting. I mean, me personally, obviously being a huge Francisco Alvarez fan is one thing, but I think for the team itself, I mean, we've talked about, there's very few really good hitting catchers. And, the Mets having a homegrown one that's so young is such a nice luxury. And it's such an important part of why they could be a successful team. But to lose him for an extended period of time it's going to be tough to follow because, not has he been good offensively, but he's been good defensively as well. And I think, seeing more Omar Narvaez is going to be rough. But on the flip side, seeing Tomas Nido actually throw out a runner, the first runner being thrown out all season for the Mets and ending that ridiculous streak is encouraging to see. I think, it'll, again, if Narvaez could just be the defensive catcher he's supposed to be, not even the offensive catcher, if he could just be the defensive catcher he was supposed to be, you could be more of a traditional team that, we just have a glove, or just a good glove catcher, not necessarily a great hitter. Like that, plenty of teams have that. That's not uncommon, especially even with good teams. But for Narvaez to be struggling on both sides of the plate, it would just be kind of interesting to see Tomas Nido get more games over him, even though he should. But with what the contracts are, that would just be a not usual thing to see. So I don't know if that will happen. Maybe. I think if the performance merits it, it could. But, for the time being, that's what they don't really have another choice. And it's not like they could just it's going to be a lot of Narvaez and Nido. And it's tough because they are nowhere close to the hitter Alvarez is at the plate, just what he could do for your team. Just losing a bat like that, it's a big loss. I think that with the way this team has played, they could overcome it. I feel like, they've kind of shown that mentality the first month of the season. So I don't see why that would change. Again, it's a big loss, but, it's a long season. 2 months isn't the end of the season, so there's still light at the end of the tunnel where he could still come back, still be a contributor for him, hopefully in meaningful games.
We all know that the guy wants to play. I mean, we all know the guy wants to stay on the field no matter what.
He stayed in the game afterwards anyway. He didn't catch the next half inning, but he still stayed on the field.
He did stay in the game because the guy's hungry. He wants to play. He's young. I love that about him. I love the energy of the kid. Is there a strong possibility that maybe... Yeah, he said he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. Is there a strong possibility where he comes back in 5 weeks because he's freaking nuts? Maybe.
It's tough at that position. That's the hardest part of the position he plays. Like, you need that left-handed catch.
That's what I was right. Yep.
200 pitches.
He needs the left hand.
Like, if Edwin Diaz is throwing you 99 miles an hour, you got no ligament in the thumb. Ouch.
And listen, I saw that happen actually live at the game in Pittsburgh after that incident he had. He dropped a few. Like he was having trouble gripping that glove a little bit, and he kind of re-aggravated that a little bit. So, maybe there's a possibility where it's a little bit longer. Maybe he does, get some DH reps.
Yeah, and last thing, like, could he come back sooner as a DH? Like, that's something to consider. But again, you have JD Martinez. Like, then JD's like out of the lineup because he doesn't own a glove. I think I got it. So what if you put JD Martinez at first, move Alonso to third base? There's your right-handed hitting third base.
Yeah, he did play third base.
DH.
Yeah, he was a third baseman. Jesus Christ. Narvaez and Nido, that's just kind of how it's going to be. It's going to be like that until Alvarez becomes healthy. If one of them gets hurt, you're probably going to either see Austin Allen get called up or something like that from AAA, who I personally think has some decent amount of pop as compared to Narvaez or Nido, who basically, who the hell knows what they're going to give you offensively. And I think he's a decent defender as well. They also traded for that Joe Hudson guy, too. Got him for cash. He's 32 years old. He's a defensive catcher. That's about it. Doesn't hit at all. So, I mean, I understand that Mets fans want to have a catcher up here that's competent, maybe replace something that Alvarez gave you. For a majority of organizations, if you have a star catcher, you have a star catcher. The depth chart after that, it usually sucks. I mean, the backup catchers stink. They are not going to be a star. They are usually a defensive guy, an older guy who, probably wouldn't even bat his weight. Offensive catchers are not very common, even though they've risen a little bit with the Alvarezes and the Adleys of the world, but you take what you can get from that. I'd say that the biggest loss is obviously the defense. And with the concerns that we do have with this pitching staff of the walks, the disparity in between catchers we've seen so far, even though pitchers do love throwing to Nido, it's a loss. It's a big loss to this lineup. And, we know that this guy's going to be a future part to this team. Once he gets it together as a full, complete player, and gets the consistency going, and, he is going to be the future catcher of this franchise, unless there's something, sporadic happens. And, speaking of other young catchers, Mets fans, we are not calling up Kevin Parada. It's not happening.
There's not people actually saying that.
Oh, no, there are.
Oh, my God.
Yes, I understand. He's 23 years old. He's older than Alvarez. Not every catcher comes up here like Alvarez, okay? Not to mention Kevin Parada last year, at the high A level, he was the worst defensive catcher statistically out of the entire league. That is not happening. You do not stunt the growth of catcher. That is not a position that you want to mess with. There's a reason why we brought in Omar Narvaez, because of Alvarez's uncertainty of how he would adjust to the major leagues as insurance. Kevin Parada is in Double-A right now. He's struggling at the plate right now. The defense still has to get better. There's a strong possibility that you don't see him until either the end of next year or the year after that. It's not going to happen. Prospects are suspect until they actually do prove it in the major league. And as of right now, he's not an option. Prospects are not an option until they make themselves an option. So unless they bring in some kind of catcher by amazing magic, this is what we got right now. We're just really hoping that the pitching staff continues their consistency with the loss of Alvarez behind the plate. As for the offense, you have your automatic 9-hole hitter now.